Hey, welcome to this episode of More with Murphy. In this episode, my oldest son Jackson and I have the privilege of sitting down with Coach Brett Norris, head varsity basketball coach at Hilliard Bradley High School. You'll hear about the program and the records. It's absolutely extraordinary, the accomplishments on and off the court Coach Norris has brought. But this episode really dives into culture and what does it mean to build a team and to build a winning culture. So no matter what you lead, we all lead something, but if you would live life with other people to accomplish a common goal, I think there's so many things you're going to enjoy listening to in this conversation. We sat down a few weeks ago. It was just before the Super Bowl, so we referenced a few fun things related to that, but we wanted to release it here for March Madness, a very special time of the year. Hope you enjoy this conversation with Coach Norris, Jackson, and myself. Coach, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And I have something, this is Coach Brett Norris. I have something that's a little bit of fun trivia. I think our paths crossed longer before either one of us might have realized it. You played basketball at St. Francis, Indiana. I know you had an amazing career, all-time leading scorer. You've had incredible success as a player and a coach, as we'll get into. But what years were you at St. Francis?
The 88-89 season would have been my freshman year, and then the last year that I played would have been the 91-92 season.
And then you graduated high school what year?
88.
Okay, so did I. Hey, when's your birthday?
November 28th.
November 20th. I'm January 6th.
Okay.
I'm January 6th, 70.
Okay.
So we are literally, you're
How
like,
about
what?
that?
You're 1 month apart from Brett Favre, and we're so.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's October. I'm a Packer fan. I know that.
Right.
But
I'm sorry then.
Yeah. What a horrific ending.
Yes.
Anyway, I went to Indiana Wesleyan my first 2 years to play baseball. I went to did you guys play?
Sure.
Indiana
absolutely.
Wesleyan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Home and home. So we would have played at your place both years that you were there. How
So
about that?
isn't that nutty?
Yeah. A really good friend of mine played there then from Franklin, Monroe, Ohio. Was a good friend of mine, and so good that I can't think of his name, Steve something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know that name, but he always guarded me. Like I remember those games actually pretty well because of our relationship back in high school and then playing college against him too. So how about that?
Crossroads League, that's an amazing, there's some good talent there.
Yeah, great league.
Crazy.
Anyway, yeah, we're both old now, but we crossed paths that many years ago. Hey, another thing I thought we'd do, we're going to start off with a little game called This or That. All right. And I'm going to do a couple. Jay's going to do a couple.
Okay.
And Jackson obviously is here as a former player of yours. But when was the first year you could dunk?
I think I dunked a volleyball my senior year in high school. And then by the time I got to college, occasionally, never in a game, but occasionally when I was feeling good, I could dunk.
Like the after practice,
Something
gather
like
around
that,
type
yes.
deal.
Like,
okay.
like players still do today, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the this or that. 1 foot or two?
2.
Really?
2, yeah.
Okay, so you're a 2 foot jumper.
Yes. There's a story behind that, though. There was back guys our age might remember the strength shoes?
Yes.
Cosmo Kramer made them famous
under
on
the balls of
Seinfeld.
the feet?
Correct. So
I
almost,
remember these.
You do? You
I don't.
So they were really popular until guys started breaking their ankles in them. But what it did is it forced you to be on the balls of your feet. But a lot of the training that came with the strength shoes involved a lot of 2 foot jumping. So that's why.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, second question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Man-to-man or zone?
Man,
Well, I got to ask, have you ever played a zone?
we have.
Really?
We have. We had it in the defensive package early in my career. Inevitably, every time we'd go to it, just to change
Switch
the
it
rhythm
up.
of the game, we would give up a score. Typically speaking, which I'm still wired like that, I would blame it on the assistant that maybe recommended it, and then I would swear we'd never go to it again. But we did. We won one huge game with it when I was still in Delphus. So many years ago, won a huge game in our league. We were so overmanned, we had to go zone, and we won a game playing it exclusively. We played one possession of man, believe it or not,
Wow.
Jackson, that night. And then the year we won the state tournament, we played it probably half of the fourth quarter in the district championship game. So it has done us some good from time to time, but we have not played a possession of it. I'm not sure we've played any of it at Bradley. Maybe a little bit, but not very often.
It's not the preference.
It is not the preference. No. Not enough accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. That's awesome. And then what was the other one?
Shorts.
High shorts or low shorts?
Oh, well, as Ken would know, I played in the era of high shorts.
It's like the
but
Fab
now,
Five era.
Yeah, now for sure. Now I'm more long short. And I will
Okay.
say that when long shorts came in, especially at the end of my playing career and then in coaching, where we couldn't order them long enough, we'd order them long and our players still wanted them to be longer. I remember, everything what goes around comes around, but I remember saying that one thing that will never come back are short shorts, and here we are.
Yep.
Now we can't
Rolling
order them
Kids
short
are
enough.
rolling them.
They
rolling
roll
to
them no
make
matter how
shorter.
short we order them. So we are going to get, I hope, new uniforms next year. And I've already told Peyton and those guys, like, look, we're going to order them short enough. No one is going to roll these. Too expensive.
All right, now this one could be the most important question you answer this entire day. You will be helping to settle, I think, some controversy in my own home. And we've all agreed that Coach Norris is the most knowledgeable basketball mind that we know. So this or that, one or the other, here it is, Jordan or LeBron.
Jordan.
No hesitation.
No hesitation. Here's the thing. I like at this point, I think LeBron's career is the best of all time. The body of work is the best. And this is an argument in our house almost, during quarantine daily. I think you could even at times, if you broke down each individual aspect of the game, you could make a good case that LeBron wins more of those categories. The way I always settle the argument is if a significant amount of money were involved, I'm taking Jordan to win the game. And again, people from my year, once he got to the top, we never saw him fail again. And so there's something about, you can't be as great as either one of them without such a psychological advantage to go with everything else that they have. But to me, Jordan was just the ultimate winner, and I'm picking him if I've got to bet big money in one game over LeBron, but it is getting narrower.
You're narrow. Yeah, I'm the same. All right.
Well, it's not unanimous.
I assume that, yeah.
Okay, I got two more for you. This is mine, and we got into a huge. In fact, I even took it to social media to settle it. It was very generational. Larry Bird, Steph Curry.
Wow. My dad, God rest his soul, would not like this answer, but I'll take Steph.
Okay.
Wow.
But again, I love Larry Bird.
And then this last one came from Peyton, which
You only have one from Peyton? I would assume you'd have hundreds.
I narrowed it down. I narrowed it down to one, which it's funny because at school and in basketball, he's only known as Murph.
Right.
But it's at home, we call him Peyton. Anyway, he said, ask coach this one, Baker Mayfield or Tom Brady?
Well, I'd love to say Baker, but unfortunately, I'll have to go with, and the guys know I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, but the one team other than the Jaguars, the Ramblers, that I root the hardest for is the Browns. So I'd love to say Baker, but I'll give it to Tom Brady for now.
Coach, you did have an incredible career. You coached, then got into coaching. You were at Delphus, great success, won a state title. It really kind of started your family, kind of growing in your profession. You coach locally here at Darby for a little bit. You are an assistant at Upper Arlington. You've coached at the collegiate level. And where I want to focus in is for the last 6 years ago, you stepped in and took over the Bradley program. And I'm going back through, and again, we'll get into it a little bit. We lived a little bit of that transition. Jackson's sophomore year, the team won 1 game. His junior year, they won 9. In the history of the school, which, what was it, 6 years old maybe at that time, they had never had double-digit wins in boys basketball. The first year you stepped in, 20-5, 18-6, 24-2, 25-2, 22-2. Last year, 25-2, and the team was playing the best they had played. I believe they're 1 game from the Final Four, and the team they were going to play, we had success twice earlier in the year. That's a record, the first 6 years, of 134-19. 134-19. didn't lose a league game over the course of like 5 years, like 62 in a row. That is incredible. You're coach of the year from the state of Ohio, just a few years back, all of Division I, all of Ohio. I want to hear, how did you do that? Because we've got listeners, they're marketplace leaders, just in our families, we're all leading something. And I think if we're honest, each of us can identify either a part of our personal life, organizations, people we lead, that is, I don't know if I should call it miraculous or crazy, but it's certainly not normal to have such a radical turnaround. I want to, organizationally, what went into that for you?
Well, I think, I came into the job with an advantage in that the time at Darby, certainly, the time at Darby, those 6 years, and then having 3 years, I was at Upper Arlington, and then, I coached collegiately, but I really just recruited. I mean, I was on the floor some, but I had the better part of 2 years to reflect on, some of our shortcomings at Darby, some of the decisions we could have made to build that program better, to continue to study the game, because I didn't get out in that little gap. Never, I always knew I wanted to get back into it. I wasn't getting out to get out. So I was, consistently studying the game, and to get a job in the same school district, to have a much better feel for how to build the program. I had a clear vision of how we were going to build it when we got the job at Bradley. So I would start by saying, everybody hits, a tee shot better when they know they have a mulligan. And I had that mulligan, so to speak. So I thought, first of all, starting with me, I had a much clearer vision of how we wanted to build it. And then, secondly, it's always about people. And the coaching staff, starting with Greg Alaco, that we were able to put together in the first year was filled with such a great combination of competency, experience, youth. But then I think the overwhelming thing we had is passion. I think Jackson could probably speak to that. We were maybe over the top that way and getting it started. But the one thing that at that time, our players, our first group, whether they liked everything, because it was a radical change for them, whether they liked it all, the one thing I don't think that they could ever look at us and say, okay, they don't have a plan, and certainly they don't lack passion. And I think you think about leadership, being competent is important. I think that young people, certainly even young people, are intelligent enough to understand when someone's in front of them, whether they have a clear plan, a clear vision, whether they appear to really understand what they're talking about and the direction they're trying to take you. And then I just think, especially for young people, genuine passion, genuine concern, genuine. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think you can fake that. I don't think you can script that. I feel in some respects that I've been blessed to just have that. And again, we were able to, starting with Greg, he was has been such an integral part of our success. Just to fill our staff full of people like that, like-minded individuals. And then, ultimately the most important people in our entire journey have been the players, and nobody else is second or even close as second, including our staff. And, our first group of guys, and Jackson was one of our foundational guys that's led us to have all the success, kind of blindly followed us. I think those are the words that I used the first meeting, is I'm just asking you to have a little blind faith. And, I thought that we would earn their trust over time if they would just initially just kind of follow us blindly. And so it's, oftentimes you talk about culture and you can slice it up in a lot of different ways and word it in a lot of different ways. And there are very creative people that have formalized all that. But, I think it just comes down to people. Now, how you get to those people is the challenge. But we've just been, starting with our first group, we've been so blessed to have such good, high character young men. And obviously that starts from their homes and the way they were raised. And something about the way we've done things has attracted just high character, hardworking, selfless young people.
I think the idea of blind faith that you hit on is so true, because that's almost, I mean, that's exactly what we were experiencing. Because when you had stepped into the program, I think in life and leadership, once you start to experience success and once you really start to gain that momentum, that's when you really start to develop that passion inside of you. And we were at a place where, like, we had experienced different individual accolades, but how did you, like, wrap us around this idea of having blind faith, not even necessarily in what we can accomplish as individuals, but we could actually start winning games and have a great season?
Well, I go back to and a lot of the things that as a player you're not privy to, but whether the staff meetings as we were building our staff and the message starting, with me, of course, and certainly seconded by Greg, who was, had similar experience in the game, is how important every meeting, every practice, every weight room workout to stand in front of you and, again, demonstrate that we have a plan, that we have a vision, we are enthusiastic, we are in the fight with you. And again, I think that's, as a young person, you can feel whether that's genuine or not. The people that we had hired were so enthusiastic about what we were doing.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Can you train and develop that, or is it either guys have it or they don't?
My experience is guys tend to have it or they don't. The best that I've been around, they have a difficult time sometimes describing where that comes from. That level of passion, the level of intrigue that, about coaching and about leading and about being around young people and trying to motivate and inspire young people to be the best version of themselves. Certainly, you read, you listen to podcasts, you talk to other people, you witness other people that have it, and that can bring out more of it from you. But I do think, by and large, it can be developed. But my experience, and even with younger coaches that we've taken on and that have been the kind of people we want, and sometimes it doesn't work out, is when they come to us with great burning passion about what we're doing, those are the guys that we can tend to develop. And when people don't have that, it's been a struggle, at least in my experience, if it doesn't start with passion. And that is one of our core values, because I think the ability to learn, the eagerness to learn, all stems from a passion. And as I've gotten older and with the experience I've gained, and certainly the success that we have had, people tend to think that I have a formula for how I've arrived. And it really, it just stemmed from, it's what my dad did. From the moment I saw or heard the ball bounce, the sound of the net, the ball going through it, just everything about the game, I just loved it, and I still do. And the feeling you have around team, you just can't fake that. And so anything I've learned from the game, it's just started with passion and how much I love it, and you want to continue to learn. So I think it's a difficult thing to you can't force it, but you give me someone with passion, and I think you can then really develop that.
Well, we could talk about restaurants locally. We can talk about, different stores. They all have a culture.
Yeah.
And there's a certain expectation. And the question is, we all know what it is, but how do you develop it? And I think that's the challenge of organizations, business leaders, coaches. We have 3 boys. We've played a lot of sports, a lot of different sports, and some teams have it. And the thing that's so intriguing to me, this is not just a team, it's a program. I mean, you've had a lot of great players come and go through the system, but to have that measure, and this, we haven't gotten into the personal success or influence on players' lives. This is just wins and losses.
Yeah.
That's it's bigger than we had a stud come through and we rode his coattail.
Right.
You got a lot of varying skill level players buying into this program. I'm like, you got what, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are showing up to practice 35 minutes early.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are several things that, in my opinion, that we misunderstand about developing culture. I think most people, when you start thinking about culture, they think about fun. They think about, we're going to have pizza and we're going to play games. And what I would say is there's a time and a place for that. And typically speaking, the time and a place becomes more appropriate because everybody's excited about spending additional time with the people that they're with. So how you get there is hard. I think that's where we misinterpret it. I think it's really hard. I think Jackson could speak to this. We now joke about it. We've gotten smarter with what we ask of our players from a work habit standpoint. But our first year was right on that edge of, okay, are we asking too much of teenagers? But we wanted to develop a culture where real toughness and a work ethic and being held accountable to that, to being at your best every day, was at the core of who we wanted to be. And that goes way beyond basketball, as we can all attest to as adults, how important it is to have grit, in the times that we're in right now. And that's hard. And I think also and I think this is key, it's exclusive. I think it's important that the people like a Jackson Murphy that are going to help you lay the foundation understand that, there are certain things that are non-negotiable. And while everybody can come in, to use an analogy, and take the car for a test drive, we're not going to sell to everybody. In that regard, it has to be exclusive. I think that's important. I think for the higher achieving people in our program, in a business, you will feel much greater ownership if you are all in, if you are super invested, if you know that it's real. So that as a high achiever, if you see someone else, even someone more talented, that is not true to the core of your organization and able to stay and able to get the same opportunities, I think that's where cultures suffer. I think that's where teams suffer. I think that's where teams splinter. And that's hard. And there are a lot of young men over the years that have played in our programs that I really like, that have enough talent to play for us. But for whatever reason, to each his own, our culture, the way we've done things, has not been for them. And I think that, you have to fight for your culture every day as a leader. Fight. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a word, but as actions, it's hard. I mean, at 51, I have a greater appreciation for young people now than I ever have. And sometimes the decisions I made in my 20s and 30s, that I just made them. And I didn't have any regret when I knew they were right. Now, I'll still make the tough decision, but there's a softer spot in my heart particularly when you have kids and you raise a family. I think you have a little more compassion. And I'm not saying we don't have compassion, and I'm not saying guys can't get extra or second chances. But I do think that word exclusive, I think our guys, and Jackson, you could speak on it, Peyton could speak on it. I think they feel a certain sense of pride when they put our gear on, that it isn't for everybody. And that is an overwhelming sense of pride that can really elevate you and take you to another level. And then it goes all back to together. You asked about team earlier. How do you do that? You have to live it every day. And I think you also have to go over and above praising those that don't get the external praise. For us, look, Keaton Norris, a player that's highly productive, a player that the average basketball fan recognizes because he's putting the ball in the hoop. He's going to get some recognition. Peyton, who's not going to get nearly as many opportunities, and his value to our team doesn't show up to the average basketball person. It's not going to show up always in a box score. But his value, and again, we're not here to get technical with basketball, as a member of our team and as an invested member of our program, is so great and so equal. And in some respects, because of that willingness to sacrifice, in a way that's uncommon for young people in our sport. is very unique. It's very rare, and in our program, again, there's no formula. I can just tell you, you've been there. In our film session and our day-to-day, the amount of praise that we try, and it's genuine, it's real, to let those guys know. I think that helps us build our team where everybody. I mean, we have a manager, Tier Fiddler, who is he is as a valuable member of our team and our program as anyone, including our players, our coaches, and we feel that. And we talk about it, and I think our players feel that, and continuing to praise the legends in our program, that's really helped us continue to build. It's no secret, the guys would tell you, you're one of my all-time favorites, and you're not alone in that. We have so many good reference points for our young people to reference, and you've continued to give back, whether it's writing a letter or sending in a video, and so. I know now as I ramble, there are just so many things that are tied into that helps promote the togetherness and the team and the program and the willingness to give yourself for the greater good. And the beauty of that is it's such a strong life message, but in the sport of basketball, when it's played well, that's kind of how it's played, just like life. And that's why I think it's another thing that makes basketball so attractive, team sport so attractive to me.
Yeah. When you talk about the value of the top guy and the bottom guy on the roster, that's something you have to intentionally develop. Because I know I've been on many different teams, sports teams, working at different places, organizations, and your relationship with the captain and the last guy on the bench appears to be the exact same every season. What is it about that being intentional about that creates the Bradley basketball culture?
Well, I do think that there's something to be said, and I can't give you whoever quoted it. I read it along the way, that your culture is truly established by those that you would consider, or the average person would consider, at the top of the food chain. And in our sport, that would be the guys that produce and get the recognition and go off to college and play and all that. And it's also established just as equally by the people at the bottom of the food chain. Again, I use those terms by what you would perceive.
Yep.
And so what I would say is, look, our players in our program have to choose to embrace our culture. And, it would be a lie to say that every player, when we go in the film room, it wouldn't be true to say that everyone is equally bought in. They have to choose to, and it really is about embracing that. And it does not come easy to young players. It does not come easy in a sport where the first time you ever play it, the first question that a loved one's going to ask you that wasn't there is, how many points did you score? So to ask a player that, to get them to understand that, okay, you can wave a towel and impact our team. You can sit in a film room and take good notes, knowing that you might not play, and impact the team. You can practice your tail off and work to get better and demonstrate that you are true to our core and impact your team in such a positive way. And I could go on and on and on. And so what I would say is those guys that have not played a ton but seen our program through, I have just an incredible appreciation for how rare that is. And I think that they know that. I think that is, again, a genuine thing that they have to feel, because it's so discussed, and in our film room and with what we call 22 time, and how we try to teach life through some video and other people talking about the value of high character and your ability to impact the group in every small way. There's so many ways. I mean, we one time did an exercise where we had our guys write all the different ways that they could impact the team. And what you realize is putting the ball through the basket is such a small percentage of that. So again, it's hard to say that there's a formula to that. That I can be moved to tears easily, and I probably get most emotional showing my appreciation for the guys that don't get the recognition. But in our film room, And in our program, I use, Matt Hansen would be the ultimate fire, as we called him, the ultimate guy that way. And he's a legend in our program. He's truly a legend. And I don't know, but I don't know that he scored 10 points for our varsity team in his career and didn't play a lot, but certainly had an equal impact to the Jackson Murphys and Brady Norrises and the guys that have gotten maybe more recognition for their ability to produce.
I've always said, I don't care if it's marriage, parenting, business success, whatever it is. A lot of times people sit from a distance and they see the public accomplishment or recognition and say, oh, I want that. What they don't realize is the countless hours and the work. Again, I don't care if it's marriage, parenting, business success, career, whatever, the film study, breaking it down, that goes in where no one sees that. It's what contributes to the opportunity to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, if you put if you drew a pyramid to all of the things, that the time that we spend just with basketball alone, at the top of the pyramid, at the narrowest spot, would be the games we play. If you think about the preparation, if you think about the time we spend training our bodies, the time we spend in the off season, the time we spend practicing, the time we spend, watching film in preparation, the games are the smallest part of the time that we spend. And so, as you're talking about those unseen hours, the average high school basketball person would have no idea how much time these kids have invested together. And so the games are the reward for all of the hard work that they put in, and that's a constant battle, a constant struggle. It's not natural I don't think it's human nature for people, but let alone young people, to be as invested in the process as they need to be, so that when we do get a chance to go compete, that the outcome hopefully ends up in our favor. And so there's so much time involved, and I think also that's where you build those deep relationships that it takes to have a one-on-one with a guy that perhaps doesn't play much, and let them know in a genuine way, a real way, that I hope you know how much I appreciate and how much you are valued. And those are those individual touches that you get with players, with people in your organization, outside of the business hours, so to speak, that are so important, just in terms of developing individual relationships that, of course, help you build the kind of culture you're after.
Let me ask you this. Our organization, we have multiple locations. It's a church. That's our setting. Several thousand people. I'm thinking of a football team. I think there's a little bit of an advantage. You personally truly do know every single person.
Right.
I'm thinking of like the marketplace leader who might have 100 people on their staff team. What advice would you give? Would it be developing your assistant coaches and leading through them? I mean, I'm thinking of Urban Meyer, again, other people who have historically been known to have a great culture. What insights do you have to that?
Well, I think it's all about the staff. I think you really have to coach your coaches, so to speak, in those situations. I think, over the years, several of our former players have gotten into coaching, and we've had, I have coached more college kids that have gone on to play college football than college basketball. And a lot of those kids have become coaches, and many of them have ended up coaching basketball, even the guys that maybe were better football players. And one of the things they always tell me is it's just so much more intimate. Your ability to lead and kind of have, as you say, know everyone and kind of have your thumb on every area of it, just feels, from a cultural standpoint, better to them. So in those sports like football, I always have great admiration for football coaches that can build a culture the right way, because I think it is clearly more challenging than what we do as basketball coaches, just because of the people. And so the same thing with the situation we're talking about your church. I think it is so important who you hire, and then when you hire them, your continued development and then the continued time that you spend so that they share your vision. And of course, it's always important that they are, we don't want to be 10 soldiers. Everybody has to add their own value and their own unique personality. But at the same point, let's make sure that we share the same vision and that we are trying to build the culture in a very similar, in a like fashion.
Tell Coach about your.
I was going to ask one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when it comes then to like delegating that responsibility and actually leading through leaders, what are some of the initial challenges of having to let go of? Because you're not. I mean, being the senior leader, it's one thing to be giving the commands. It's one thing to be, but like we're talking about, when you lead hundreds of people, or even in your instance, when you have a JV team and a freshman team, and you let them go, what are some of those challenges and what are some of the benefits?
Well, I mean, the benefits are ultimately, I think, you've got to put, focus on the things that are most important to you as a leader. Like, we all have a list of priorities. And I think that sometimes when you string yourself out too thin, that you become average at everything and you're not really good at the things that are most important. And so I think that's the advantage to delegating for sure. And then I'm not good at delegating. I'm still a work in progress for certain in every area, but certainly that one. I'm better now than I've ever been. But it's again, as there's that trust word is so important. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're gonna, as a former player at that time, if you're going to share the vision that I have, I have to earn your trust. And so that's a two-way thing. And I think it's no different than your staff. Is, we have built trust over the course of years that has allowed me to delegate more and more. And then because I have trust that the people that we have in those positions are going to do a great job. And I think sometimes it's just letting go. I think it's important, we have young coaches that are developing, and it's important for me to let go. The more you micromanage, sometimes you don't allow people to make the kinds of mistakes, to put their own personal touch and have their own ownership, which is another important word that we use in this, so that they will hopefully invest even more in our culture and in our program, and then in that way allow them to develop. So some of it I think is okay. We've met, we've discussed it, we've continued to develop, and now go do your thing. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it's my job when I see things where I can improve that is to continue to lead them. And then what happens too is you hope that the staff's coming back to you as, I'm the head coach. So as the leader, that they're coming back and they're serving to make me better and challenging me as an old school guy for some of the young guys to impart some of the new school values that I think are important, particularly for our players. They're the same age and I'm getting older.
Yeah, like letting people wear a headband.
Well, look, there's only one guy that I've ever let wear a headband, and there's discussion because our little guy Kipton still, if you ask him who his all-time favorite Jaguar player, it's Jackson Murphy, and he doesn't hesitate. His brothers don't like that, but that's real. And so every now and then when his hair gets long, he will still put the headband on. And I still say there's only one player that has ever worn a headband for us and that will ever wear one, and that's you.
That's so funny.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was going to say, tell Coach that same, and I've heard you say the influence of being in the program, but the number of small groups and coaches, and it's that same building a culture, how that's carried over here and you're implementing it.
Yeah. Just kind of explain what I've been. So it's that whole care. Delegation and care that you're talking about, where since I've joined the team here, we have over 120 leaders just at this campus for leading small groups, and stepping in as the point person. Like, I realized there's no way for me to actually impact these leaders in a meaningful way. Like, I can't get enough coffees. I can't meet with enough people. So I started then just recruiting and developing this team of coaches. So I have 15 coaches then. Each coach is over 5 to 7 leaders, and then they're pouring in, they're growing these leaders, caring for them, connecting with them. And then I really have my team. And so it's essentially what you're saying, how I'd be spreading myself way too thin.
Sure.
But implementing that's awesome.
I got another question before we dive into the last section here. You're a routine guy. Mm-hmm. Your fundamentals, consistency. This past year has been anything but that. You missed an incredibly important month in June, which is high school, kind of team month. How have you had to adjust your approach in the midst of COVID with just all the stuff that's happening?
Yeah, it's a daily struggle for me. I am routine based. I think that, the reality is if someone came to a game and watched me coach, that the fire and the passion, the demands on our players sometimes probably looks unreasonable to, my voice doesn't carry. So what a lot of people don't realize, I have to work to be heard. So it looks like, the veins come out and I am screaming, but I have to for them to hear. So it appears worse than it is sometimes to the person that doesn't understand maybe competition. And I say that because I wish I could be different in those moments. So being patient is not something that I've been good at, that I'm constantly trying to work better. And so when you add adversity and the times, what you're talking about is a couple things with that. The summer is such an important part, not just in the basketball, but really more so. Look, when you don't have games that count in the near future, I'm more patient. There are so many more moments in the summer where a player can see me as a real person, if that makes sense. There are just so many more relaxed moments. This whole circumstance, being able the kids to even go to Chipotle and eat together more has been taken from us. Extra time in the gym, extra conversations aside from basketball. And so with that, what I'm saying is when you're demanding, when the game's on, when it becomes, in this circumstance, I feel like it's just been too much basketball. Now, we can't change that at this point in the season. And I feel like we've just missed a lot of the deep relationship building so that when you do demand and from kids that are like, I hope Peyton and Keaton and AJ and those guys that have been through it get it. But with our young players, I feel like there's a little bit of a gap there. So that pressure to handle that part of it, to feel like that perhaps I haven't done as good a job as I could as a leader to build that relationship, some of which has obviously been out of my control. It's been a struggle. It's been tough. But so you try to exercise some patience. You try to make sure that you understand you can't control everything, that you have to do the best under the circumstances. We were quarantined during the season, never had to deal with that. And so having to navigate your way through that the best you can is a daily challenge that, you hope you lean on the other leaders in the program, you make the best decision for the team and you move forward.
I think, and I really do believe you really do, and your staff really does exude genuine love and care for the individual player. And coupled equally with that is I would say from my perspective, a zero wavering, we're going to run your program. And that's one of my highlights each year is the parent meeting at the very beginning,
Right.
where you just, hey, we're here for your kids, but this is the Bradley program. These are our core values. Coaches coach, parents cheer, kids play, and we try to develop them. And I think that's a winning combination.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's come with experience. And I'll be the first to admit, and I think our teams would say the same. I find fault in every game I've ever coached, and I'm not afraid to admit. As a young coach, I'm now not like, I'm all right with. I want our team to know, because we are in it together, and there's not a game that I coach that I don't have regrets. I wish I could have handled it with a different tone. So and so should have played more. We should have done this. And so, I'm no different than the players, and our players don't play perfectly, and I have certainly not coached perfectly. And so that whole vision, look, as a staff, we've worked extremely hard, and we are going to make some mistakes, but we have a clear vision and a belief through years of experience, through years of success. And so I think it is important that we all understand our roles, and I'm not going to stand in front of our parents and claim that we're perfect. And certainly not going to believe that you're going to sit there and watch every game and not question. That's human nature. But there has to be a line. Everybody has to understand the expectations. And sometimes that can come off as blunt and maybe arrogant to some when I say those things, but it's my job to lead, and I have to have a clear vision. I don't have to be perfect, but I have to have a clear vision. And going back to what we were talking about earlier about that, exclusive, like if we don't stand for something, we stand for nothing, right? Whoever said that quote. And so we're gonna take a stand, and we're gonna stay true to our core values, and not always do it perfectly, but I'm willing through years of experience to make decisions and move forward, and understand that it's our job as coaches to make those decisions, and not allow outside influences to impact how we're going to arrive at those decisions.
Mm-hmm. I think it was, we were having a conversation at the house a while ago, and my mom asked the question, well, what would happen if you showed up 30 minutes late to film?
Yeah.
And Peyton and I just kind of looked at each other, and there isn't like a punishment attached to that.
Yeah.
It's that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's just crazy because that's built into the individual. Like, it's not, here's our set of rules. You're going to do 50 push-ups. You're going to run until you throw up. You just don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, there was, when I was young, we had a rule for everything. And I believe if you count sprinting the length of the court, that's one. That's a line. It was 10 lines per minute late to anything. Over the course of time, what I realized is, and this is my opinion, is if you have a relationship with everyone in your program, and that relationship foundationally is built on trust, and it's built on having a like-mindedness and a shared passion, that I don't think things like that need to be punished. And I really feel like, and it hasn't happened much. It occasionally happens with a young player still trying to figure out whether they really want to embrace our culture. You have conversations, and so ultimately it's no different than someone that goes to a job, like being reliable.
Yeah.
People around you, teammates in our case, being able to count on you is really important, really important. And so we're going to hold people accountable. And again, not by making them run necessarily. Sometimes with a young player, we'll do that. But certainly, some people also have equity build up. I mean, Peyton Murphy has equity build up. And he might not feel like it some nights, but he does. And so if he were to make an error like that, it would be so uncommon for him that I would like to think you have a quick conversation. He probably would feel plenty of guilt before that, because not because he's afraid of me, I hope. That might be some of it, but more like you have an obligation to our group to
He belongs to the team.
That's what it
correct.
is. Yeah.
And so it's no different than our families or our places of work. If it's a place you love going to work, you just overwhelmingly feel that sense of obligation. And that's really important. And really something that with our core people like yourself, has been so cool to see young people. Again, it's very uncommon. And the other thing about all this with young people, based on the way our generation parents and the way we educate, they don't get it enough. And so it is rare to be told, no, it's not good enough, do it again. These are rare things, and things that we talk about all the time. Like, what we're asking you is not normal. And so you got to choose to embrace it and trust that it's going to really serve you well in life. And then, there are plenty of people, including people that you played with when we made that transition, that had plenty of talent, but just chose not. And which, again, is understand and respect that. It's not going to be for everything.
But the
everybody.
minute you start to dilute, to allow people into the exclusive program that don't fully embrace, you killed everybody.
You do.
You lost everything.
You lose everything. And I go back to that. Like, we'll have a little bit more leeway with our junior high kids and our freshmen. And that's another thing that's really new to Bradley. What I realized is you can kind of have one culture and then have subcultures where your standards for young people, you might lower them a little bit as they're developing. Again, you're going to have those conversations. You may run a young player if he's late, given your example. But So look, but in order to play, to be a part of our program all the way through, to be a varsity basketball player, there is a high standard that we will not negotiate, that we won't waver on. But as we develop, when you think about, like, we've got, 13, 14, 12-year-olds in our program, that takes time. And so at one point in our career, everybody had the same standard, and we were losing some young kids. And so we had to further educate and educate and educate, and then educate the parents as well. And then you hope what they do is, over time, by the time it's important enough to our varsity kids, that you hope that they've embraced it. And if they haven't by then it's time to part ways.
I think one of the reasons I love sports so much growing up playing is it does teach skill sets, lessons for life. There was a season I loved to play. Then I found myself, I got to a season I like to see, I got more joy out of watching my kids play. And now it's, my kids, and then it's seeing other people. It's helping others become better. And even like Peyton came home the other day, and first question, what'd you learn? What'd you do? What'd you work on? And he'll say, it was a good practice. We had good energy, whatever. Then he said, we watched a TED Talk about dealing with adversity. And obviously, team recently came off quarantine, maybe had tired legs, whatever, lost. Great. What do we learn from it? How do we get better? As a dad, forget the whole program, but as a dad, I'm like, okay, that's a team that's on the same core value system we are, because we all face adversity in life. We're all going to have challenges. We're all going to have things we think's not fair, whatever. But go back to your core values: grit, resiliency, determination, get better, prepare as best you can, control what you can control, and you just got to get through it. I love that. And I know that's, again, takeaway. This is 139 and 19, whatever. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I think your greatest contribution, just as a parent, is what you're shaping these young men, boys who are becoming men, to experience true success in life. I know I've heard you talk about the impact just 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, we got lunch a few months ago.
We did?
And I told you, I mean, it's crazy to think
It was an emotional lunch, by
it
the way.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
But
me.
6 years being removed from the program, I think it's given me time to really like reflect back. And it was this last year when Olivia, my wife, and I, when we were living in Kentucky and I was studying graduate school seminary, and I started thinking, it was when I was filming one of the videos, and I was like, the habits and just the routines and the discipline, the culture that was instilled in me for like the 9 months really that we had with each other has like no doubt made me a better husband, a better man, a better pastor. And like when I reflect back, what is it now about being the head coach of a boys varsity basketball team that's different than maybe earlier in your career? Because I think even when we had our conversation, you truly understand the fact, take the records out, like you're building young men to like find their purpose.
Yeah. Well, I just think, it's life experience, as the longer you go, like you get the proper dose of humility served. You have children, you raise a family, you understand the unique love that a parent has for their children. And then, hopefully if we evolve and improve in life, and I'd like to think at 51, I'm the best version of myself. Still have a lot of work to do, but so you do realize that's the magic. That's really it's really what I think has made me a better coach, is that's where I've arrived. When you talk about the records, and as honest as I can be, I wish that was more important right now, because it is incredible. And it was so important. When you're young, I had this, I guess, insecurity, and you're constantly trying to validate yourself. And the way you validate unfortunately, yourself in the coaching profession is your team needs to win.
Yeah.
And so you become consumed just with that. And listen, I love to compete. The outcome is important. I love that. But if in any way, which I think you're probably giving way too much credit to what we did in 9 months, but if in any way it can enhance your life, the life of the kids that we've coached, that's the coolest thing. And I do know it does for those that embrace it, because as I said earlier, asking for someone's best mentally, physically, emotionally, every day, our core values together with passion, grit, and honor, every day to hold people accountable to those core values. It's hard for me. It's harder for a teenager. But when you do that, think you serve young people really well. And I do think, hopefully I'm evolving and I have some new school approach to the way we do things now, but those old school values, I think we've lost a little bit of, that I think our parents' generation perhaps had a little bit better handle of. And I do still believe that those old school values that we were taught, I think, hold a greater advantage for young people now than they ever have, because it's so rare and it is the most important. The time that I enjoy now with our players the most is when they're done, and we become hopefully more like friends, and have lunch, grab a beer, whatever it might be, and I love that. I love being a part of their life in any way, shape, or form.
Well, Coach, you have. Again, we've got one more. Our last one has another this year, and one more year in your program. After that, we're your biggest cheerleaders. Thank you. What you got going is really special.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I told you with Braden, you enjoy the ride as a dad too.
Yeah.
Because it goes 6 years removed from the program. It goes so fast. I appreciate your time, Jackson and I. There's so many times, literally, your influence is not just with those kids. There's times I literally have said, I wonder what Brett would do right here. And how would he handle this? Would he let it slide? No, he would not. He would he would lovingly say, guys, that's not good enough. We got to do this again. We got to get it done. And it's not just the success on the court, it's your influence off the court. So thank you so much for sharing with us.
Anything for the Murphys, anything.
Thanks for listening to the More with Murphy podcast. It's our hope that listening will help you discover and embrace more in your life. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and subscribe and feel free to share. You can also help us achieve more on the podcast by writing a review of the show. Positive reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, get new and exciting guests, and tell us what content you are loving. Who knows, we might just read your review on the show. Did you know that we also give 5 of you free coffee every episode? All you have to do is take a screenshot while you're listening, tag @KenWMurphy, and post it to your Instagram story. We'll pick 5 random winners and send you a Starbucks gift card. Finally, if you want to learn more about our guests or the resources mentioned on the show, check out our website at morewithmurphy.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for More with Murphy.